So hopefully at this stage you've got a really good understanding of balanced diets, and you also understand the biochemical molecules and this idea that they contain specific elements and that they're made up of individual units called monomers, which can be joined into polymers. If you're not, there's lots of resources available to you, and obviously you need to ask questions. So this is the next thing that we're going to move on to. The syllabus statement is about understanding the energy requirements will change with activity levels, with age, and with pregnancy. And if you look at page 11 of your booklet, you'll see that this here is reminding you of everything that you've done in physics. And remember, you should be bringing your ideas from physics and chemistry also into your biology learning. Also down here, I just want to pull up this idea that your textbook is a really excellent resource. And what I want you to do once we finish this video is to look at pages 55 and 56. You can make extra notes using that textbook, and obviously you ask the questions that you need to get some clarity about. So if we look at this, what you can see here is an example of a nutritional label. And if you go into your cabinet at home or in your fridge, you'll see this kind of thing on all of the foods that are there. And in particular, what we want to look at is the energy content. Now, the energy content that we're interested in is kilojoules. So kilojoules is given the notation little k, capital J here. This is the unit of measurement of energy that we use in science. There is something called a kilocalorie, which is often referred to just as a calorie, which is also a unit of energy, but what we're interested in is the actual kilojoule content. And very often what we want is to look at two different foods and compare them. So what we do is we look at the kilojoule content per 100 grams. So if we're looking at it per 100 grams, we've got a fair comparison between two separate foods, and that might help us with certain food choices that we've got. And if you look at this one, some brands actually offer advice. So you can see that you've got these traffic lights here. The green and the low means that these are more healthy choices, and the red, which is showing you that this is probably less healthy choice if you eat mostly this kind of red material. So this is from a burger, and we can see that the energy in this burger is 924 kilocalories. Okay, that's 11% of your daily needs. So it's 220 kilocalories. But again, just to draw your attention to this idea that kilojoules and kilojoules per gram, even better, is what we're interested in terms of our biology learning. We need to think about why is it that we're looking at energy, and we need to connect this idea of energy to our previous knowledge. So what I want you to think about is that energy in food that we eat is a kind of energy store, and it's the form chemical energy store. So there's energy in the bonds that make up the individual substance in that food, and in particular it's the fat content and the carbohydrate content which has got this high chemical energy store within it. When we eat the food, we can break down the food, we then put it into our gut, and we put that from the gut into our bloodstream. The bloodstream will carry the monomers of our food around the body and deliver it to the cells. And when the individual cells of our body get that chemical energy store, they're going to use it, and they're going to do what is called an energy transformation. They're going to transfer the energy from the food into a different kind of chemical energy. They're going to do a process called respiration, and they're going to make this chemical compound here called ATP. So I'll say that again because this is quite difficult, that when we eat food, we are eating and taking into our body's chemical energy stores. The individual cells of our body then do an energy transformation. They transfer the energy into this compound here, ATP, and that chemical reaction that does that transformation is called respiration, cellular respiration. We're actually going to look at the process of digestion and respiration in quite a lot of detail in year 10. So ATP is another example of a chemical energy store. And ATP, you can think about it as being like the batteries of your cell, the batteries which give you the power to do the things that your cell needs. So down here, I want to draw your attention to this is the chemical formula for cellular respiration. And as I said, we'll do this in year 10, but just so that you're familiar with it now, your body cells need a supply of glucose. Instead of glucose, they can also use fatty acids, and they can take glucose or fatty acids, they can react it with oxygen and produce carbon dioxide, water, and energy. And the energy here is ATP. And this is the chemical formula. Remember, we're all about models, and this chemical formula is a model of that respiration reaction. Other things I want to draw your attention to is the fact that this is what we call aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration means that we use oxygen to do this process. There we go, we got the oxygen here. So aerobic respiration happens inside your cells. They need a chemical energy, which is in the form of food, for example, glucose. They need a supply of oxygen, and then these two things react together to produce carbon dioxide and water, which are waste. We actually breathe these out at our lungs. But the cell then has this energy currency, this battery ATP, and that energy can be used, for example, in your muscle to do muscle contraction. Another thing I want to draw your attention to is what we said here, that we could either start off with glucose or we could use fatty acids. But if I've got 1 gram of carbohydrate, and glucose, remember, is a type of carbohydrate, and I've got 1 gram of fat, instead of using the glucose, I use fat, then the fat will release twice as much ATP as the carbohydrate, which is interesting. And if I draw your attention down here, Mrs. H. Gren, remember, these are the characteristics of living things. The R in this case stands for respiration, and the N stands for nutrition. So everything we're talking about within this unit is trying to draw these ideas of nutrition alongside this idea of why do we have nutrition? Well, one of the reasons is to get energy, and we get energy from doing respiration, cellular respiration, aerobic respiration, to generate this chemical energy, ATP. This is the kind of energy that the cell can use to do work. So this slide is bringing into our thinking the idea of an energy balance. So the amount of energy that you take in should be the same as the energy that you need for your body and you use up. And if your energy balances change, then certain things happen. So we've got calories or kilojoules. The kilojoules that we take in should meet our demands, and it should be that's the amount of kilojoules that we burn off so that we are staying at the same weight. But if the calories in are too much, then we start to put on weight because we're not burning it. So that extra calorie intake will tip the energy balance. And we've got some things down here that you can read about. This is beyond what you need to know for GCSE, but it's quite interesting if you want to do some extension work. So what impacts the energy that you take in? Well, how hungry you are, certain environmental conditions, the metabolic type of energy, palatability or the reward for eating that energy, and psychology. So if you want to do a bit of extension work, dip into these ideas and maybe make something, a poster, an infographic, and send it to me to have a look at, because I'll be very interested in you if you can do that extra work. If you want to, of course. Then we've got the energy output. Then the energy output depends on your basal metabolic rate. Now, this one I do want you to appreciate that certain people have genetics that are capable of burning off energy very quickly, whereas other people have got a much slower basal metabolic rate, so they're more inclined to put on weight. The exercise that you do, obviously, the more exercise you do, the more energy you're going to burn off. Okay, and also you've got other activities, and you've got this idea of thermo effect of food. This one is complicated. Again, if you want to extend yourself, look into that. But what I want you to appreciate is that if your energy in is too high, you're going to put on weight. The energy in should equal the energy that comes out. So hopefully that's very helpful for you to have an introduction to energy and food. The next thing for you to do is to read the textbook pages 55 to 56 to help you to complete the questions that are in the booklet. In addition, okay, I'd ask you to pause the video at this particular position here and have a read about this stuff and bring questions to the lesson. If all of this makes good sense, then what you can next do is this section of the booklet and this section of the booklet. And once you've filled it in, okay, well, actually, I want you to pause this in just a moment. And after you've paused this for a moment, dip in, do the booklet, and then you can click on the video to carry on. And I'm going to share the answers with you in a minute. So pause now to get those bits done. And once you're finished, restart, and I'm going to share the answers with you. So hopefully these are the answers that you got. Can you check your answers against these model answers here and make any corrections that are required? Also, if you're not sure about any of the corrections, then obviously you need to ask and we'll discuss it in the Google Meet. This also, I want you to check and to add anything that's missing, and for you to have the opportunity to ask any questions in the class.